Ana Rosa Barrera, a 40-year-old woman who dreamed of becoming a grandmother, settled there. Family friends described Ana Rosa as a woman of courageous character and adventurous spirit, who, faced with the need to start life from scratch, resolutely went forward. According to some reports, she lived in a tent for 4 years. Although details of her reasons for doing so could not be found, Ana Rosa worked at the Secretariat for Children, Adolescents, and Families in Córdoba and loved what she did. She also ran an upholstery workshop with her partner Marcelo Ferrareto, whom she met when she started sewing for a business he owned. By 2017, 46-year-old Ana Rosa and 51-year-old Marcelo had been living together for 10 years and practiced Reiki together, a complementary therapy characterized by the application of palms to restore physical, mental, and spiritual balance. However, things didn't go smoothly for the couple. They started having disagreements and couldn't find common ground. They each had 4 children from previous relationships. 2 of Ana Rosa's children lived in Salto province and the other 2 lived abroad, one in France and the other was about to become a father in Bolivia. As for the rest of Ana Rosa's relatives, her parents, brothers, and sisters lived in Córdoba. The woman maintained a very good relationship with her co-workers, who had the opportunity to meet her and Marcelo on many occasions. He was known as a wallpaper maker and his workshop was near the house where they lived. People close to the couple considered him to be a jealous and controlling person, which apparently began to irritate Ana Rosa. On Sunday, May 28th, they went to visit relatives in the city of Villa Lend. During the trip, there was a heated argument between the couple that erupted because Marcelo started checking Ana Rosa's cell phone. The argument continued in their home, even into the early hours of Monday morning. Neighbors heard them yelling and insulting each other, then things calmed down, but not for long. Hours later, Marcelo reported to the police that his wife was missing. Although the media gave different versions of when the man filed the report, most of them agreed that he came to the 18th police station on Tuesday, May 30th. Marcelo told police officers and repeated to the media that early Monday morning he woke up at 6 a.m., as he usually did. His wife was already gone. He clarified that Ana Rosa usually got up early to feed the dogs before leaving the house. Up to this point, everything indicated that it was a Monday like any other and he was going about his daily business. Residents of Los Cedros and the province were shocked by the news of the disappearance of one of their residents and the grief-stricken husband's statement that the last time he saw Ana Rosa was when they went to bed on Sunday night and Monday night. According to some digital newspapers and TV stations, Marcelo realized that something strange had happened when he received a call from Ana Rosa's colleagues. They were perplexed because she did not show up for work since she was a person incapable of being absent without a valid reason. On the other hand, recalling the last few hours before filing the application, Marcelo explained that on Monday, he accidentally found Ana Rosa's white Chevrolet automobile. When he went to do some shopping at the drugstore, the car was abandoned on Rainier Avenue in front of a beauty salon in the Santa Isabel neighborhood, almost halfway between where they lived and her work. His wife's belongings and keys were in the car, only her cell phone was missing. The man claimed he had tried to call her, that he, her friends, and children had left messages, but there was no response. Ana Rosa sent her last WhatsApp message at 22:40 on Sunday, May 28. People close to the case said it is not known what may have happened or whether she was the victim of a crime. Since filing the report, Marcelo has been in constant communication with police and has also made attempts to locate the woman on social media and through the media. In an interview with reporters, he said that Ana Rosa was going to go to the gym early on the day she went missing to swim and then make an appointment with a trauma surgeon. Marcelo stated that the most important thing to him was that she was home. When asked about how he found the car, he said that when he came out of the pharmacy on Monday afternoon, he saw the car in front of a beauty and massage parlor. Marcelo explained that Ana Rosa had a neck pain the day before, so he decided to inquire if she was at that salon. He also said that since he had the key to the car, he opened it and checked her belongings. According to the man, he initially thought that Ana Rosa had left because of an argument that took place early Monday morning, adding that according to his Reiki teacher, if she decided to leave, he should leave her alone. Prosecutor Alejandro Peralta Tainelo of Altagracia took over the case. The investigation began immediately. Initially, several hypotheses were put forward. On the one hand, there was the possibility that Ana Rosa was the victim of kidnapping or robbery, also considered the possibility of revenge. It was not excluded that she left voluntarily. As part of the investigation, Marcelo testified for more than 14 hours. On Wednesday, May 31st, he gradually began to fall into a series of contradictions that, in the eyes of the investigator, showed him less and less as the distraught husband of the missing woman and more as the prime suspect in her disappearance. Everything Marcelo was saying made no sense to the detectives. Moreover, his moods went through different stages that also alarmed the experienced forensic investigators. At first, he seemed euphoric, confident, him constantly giving interviews to the press. Then he began to extol his innocence, giving details that no one had asked about, and even tried to justify himself by talking about his relationship with Ana Rosa and her anger at him. Marcelo also began to say directly and without question that he could not have done anything wrong to his partner. The circumstances of the appearance of Ana Rosa's car at the scene where it was found and Marcelo's explanation of how he found it raised a number of doubts. According to witnesses living in the area where the car was found, it was left by a man in gray clothing, not a woman. As the hours passed, despair grew among Ana Rosa's loved ones, as despite intensive search efforts, there were no results. But while the search continued, investigative authorities continued to pursue the case. The prosecutor in charge of the case was convinced that Marcelo was hiding something and insisted that investigators dig deeper into the now suspect. On Friday, June 2nd, meeting with police officers again, Marcelo changed his attitude. He became calmer. But when detectives presented him with information from cell phone antennas showing his movements that didn't match his story, the man broke down and the truth came out. Marcelo confessed that he killed Ana Rosa and ran her down, then dismembered her to dispose of the remains. After confessing to such a brutal crime, the killer also revealed where he'd buried the dismembered body of the woman who had been his partner for the past decade. A few hours later, the police, supported by a canine unit, found the remains of Ana Rosa. At around 2:30 p.m., excavations were carried out, ending the search. Her dismembered body was in a hole. Marcelo had dug it himself on a dirt road located in the countryside, opposite the factory and separated by about 200 meters from Highway 5, which connects the provincial capital with the town of Altagracia. According to prosecutor Peralta Ateno, the place was well known to the perpetrator as he often visited it to perform some work related to his profession. Everything Marcelo had said on previous occasions, with the exception of mentioning the quarrel that took place early Monday morning, was a lie, step by step. For the family and friends of Ana Rosa, their worst nightmare came true. All the prayers and pleas that for days had been directed to her return, at that moment turned into requests for repose, comfort, and punishment of the perpetrator. Tears of uncertainty turned into tears of irreparable loss and into anger at the murderer who had been playing with the feelings of acquaintances and strangers for days and thought he could fool the authorities and escape justice. Those who knew him agreed that he was a jealous and manipulative man and kept Ana Rosa busy with his questions and demands. Marcelo's need for control became apparent. In the midst of the investigation, he hacked into the victim's social media account. Although pleased that he was only now able to crack the password, according to the profile compiled on him, it turned out that they were indeed all the woman's passwords even before he killed her. According to the reconstruction of events, the killer and his victim had been fighting all weekend before she was reported missing, and it was Marcel's unhealthy jealousy that unleashed all this hell. When in the midst of an argument, the man took a sledgehammer and struck her several times until she died. He then attempted to place the lifeless body in the car, but when that failed, he took a knife and began dismembering it. He then placed the remains in his vehicle and drove them to a location where they were discovered several days later. Following the guilty plea, a new search was conducted on Friday at the home where the defendant and Ana Rosa resided. Several tools were found as a result of the search, including cleavers and knives of various sizes. Marcelo was arrested and spent his first night in jail. He was charged with aggravated murder, murder of a woman, and gender-based violence, which carries a life sentence. Prosecutor Peralta Atena clarified that the statement of the accused when he took responsibility for the crime could not be considered a confession. Therefore, the record only recorded that he confessed to the crime while being interviewed as a witness, adding that the statement would be made in the coming days, when the necessary evidence to support the charges would be gathered. Among the documents to be used in the case are the final autopsy report, the forensic report of the vehicles and items collected during the searches, and the results of the luminol test conducted at various locations. The defendant's lawyer, Jose Luis Saca, said the same day that despite the confession, he would ask for his client's release. He argued that what the police said had no legal force and could only serve as an indication to the prosecutor for procedural jeopardy, but it would not be valid. In addition, the defense counsel stated that his client was not going to give any testimony. The examinations continued over the weekend, and on Monday, June 5th, the preliminary autopsy report was published. According to this report, the cause of death of Ana Rosa was severe head trauma. The defendant's lawyer stated that he was waiting for the secrecy to be lifted in order to review the evidence against his client, and that the most important for him were the psychiatric and psychological evaluations to know Marcel's emotional state, which would probably be one of the aspects raised by the defense. Then, on June 9th, it was learned that luminol tests had been conducted in the house where the victim and the defendant lived during the last few hours. These tests indicated the presence of a large amount of blood that had been washed into the patio. The medical examiners also learned new details after autopsying the remains, including cuts on the extremities that were inflicted by a person skilled with a knife. A cut measuring 18 centimeters by 7 centimeters deep was found on the victim's neck, which reached the cervical region. As a result of all these circumstances, the prosecutor's office brought Marcelo Ferrareto to trial on the charge of double aggravated murder because of the relationship with the victim and because of gender-based violence. After Ana Rosa's disappearance, her acquaintances provided information about her, her partner, and their relationship to both the media and the authorities. One of her friends, Viviana Lujan, said that Ana Rosa began to change her style and stopped wearing lace-up shoes to work. She also let her hair down and admitted to Viviana that she felt prettier and more of a woman. It was these changes, according to Viviana, that caused arguments with Marcelo. Other friends also claimed that Ana Rosa had been in a good mood lately and seemed happy. She revealed that she and Marcelo have been having difficulties, but they had been working on improving their relationship. Moreover, the couple took some short trips together. Marcelo's trial for the murder of Ana Rosa began almost 2 years after the crime. The prosecutor's office explained the seriousness of the charge in detail for the jury. According to the final autopsy results, Ana Rosa received a strong initial blunt force blow to the face, from which she lost consciousness. Then she received several blows to the head, resulting in the crushing of her skull. At the first hearing, the defendant chose to remain silent. Thereafter, the testimony of witnesses was heard. The first witness, Deborah Territorios, one of Ana Rosa's daughters, testified that ever since her mother met Marcelo, she had been gradually estranged from the children and other family members. The girl reported that they were the first to move from Salta with her father, followed by her older siblings. This geographic distance exacerbated the lack of communication with her mother. Deborah also noted that when they were alone with their mother, Ana Rosa was a loving and caring mother. However, as soon as Marcelo showed up, her mother would distance her from her. The girl even said that sometimes she had to leave her mother's house quickly because she knew Marcelo was coming soon. Another relative who testified was Ana Rosa's cousin, Roberto Enrique Reina, in whose house the couple's quarrel began on May 28, 2017. The man recounted what happened that day. According to him, the quarrel started because of a message that Marcelo found on Ana Rosa's cell phone. However, during his testimony, Roberto said that Marcelo's jealousy didn't seem like something out of the ordinary, which didn't help the charges much. The prosecutor in this indictment talks about the dominance of the accused over the victim, asymmetrical relationships, the objectification of the woman in front of third parties, and the context of gender violence. The case file mentions situations indicative of obsessive jealousy on the part of the accused. Thus, Marcelo signed up for the classes that Ana Rosa decided to attend, was on the same schedule as the woman, and had complete control over her. As anticipated from the beginning, after the arraignment, the defense strategy was based on changing the charge, questioning the actions in which their client told the police that he had committed the crime. It should be recalled that Marcelo was testifying as a witness at the time and the defense attorney was not present. If it is found that the police were already investigating the accused when he stated that he killed Ana Rosa, his confession may be invalidated. So could the other case files. However, according to the prosecutor, Marcel's statement when he took responsibility for the crime was evaluated based on Supreme Court jurisprudence and was admitted as evidence, even if he did not say it in the presence of a lawyer. On the second day of the hearing, testimony continued. Among them was the testimony of Fernando Valamia, the victim's girlfriend, who stated that the accused was a controlling person and that he had become very violent recently before the murder. Fernando, who was a co-worker of the victim, testified that when Ana Rosa began a relationship with Marcelo, she became distant and then reappeared with the intention of renewing the friendship. Fernando stated that the defendant sought to follow his partner in all her actions. In particular, she mentioned the Reiki classes he began taking after Ana Rosa did.
The indictment also states that after beginning energy harmonization therapy, Ana Rosa told her friend that she felt good, that she had been able to repair her relationship with her mother, sister, and children, and that she planned to visit her son, who lived in Bolivia. However, as she began to feel these positive changes, Marcelo became increasingly aggressive. According to Fernanda, Ana Rosa once said that women have a chance of getting something if they have a great attitude, to which he vehemently replied that they are all idiots who end up dying in a ditch. According to Fernanda, the spouses had not been living in the same room lately. Ana Rosa slept on the top floor and Marcelo on the ground floor. On the second day of the hearing, Claudio Bustamante, the police officer who received Marcelo's statement on May 2, 2017, also testified. He assured the jury that it was a spontaneous act, as the man had cracked without pressure from the police officer during the interrogation. Marcel was heard. He said that on Monday Ana Rosa had told him that he no longer satisfied her and that she was cheating on him. He admitted that this had made him angry and that he had hit her, although he did not remember with what. Marcelo later said that he fell asleep at the table. He then got up and went to bed. The man added that it was all like a dream, like something unreal. He assured that if he had been fully conscious, he would never have committed such an act. Then, with tears in his eyes, Marcel apologized to the community, to Ana Rosa's family, and to his own relatives for what they had been through. Finally, on April 11th, the jury of the 11th Criminal Court found Marcelo Ferrareto guilty of the double aggravated murder of Ana Rosa Barrera. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 35 years of imprisonment, only on condition that he shows good behavior. When the verdict was announced, the victim's relatives cried and started shouting at the convict, calling him a murderer. They cursed him and wished him to rot in prison. As he was quickly escorted out of the courtroom, in turn, the prosecutor handling the case said that the jury's decision was in line with the prosecution and prosecution's request. It was also proven that Marcelo Ferrareto acted in full consciousness and hatched a plan to kill Ana Rosa. Prosecutors argue that the desire to make it appear as if he was not in his right mind when he committed the crime was a strategy to avoid the maximum penalty. November 12, 2021, 19-year-old Ashley Wadsworth went from Canada to the UK to her boyfriend, with whom she met on the internet. The girl was overjoyed that after many years of online communication, she would be able to see him. However, no one could have guessed that this happy meeting would turn into a tragedy. Ashley Wadsworth was born on July 25, 2002 in Vernon Township in British Columbia, Canada. She was the daughter of Kenneth Wadsworth and Christy Gendron and had an older sister named Haley. The Wadsworth family was large and close-knit, consisting of over 50 people, including cousins, uncles, and aunts of varying degrees of kinship. They all lived in the same community. Ashley was a cheerful, outgoing, and energetic girl, so she was popular and had many friends. She loved outdoor activities such as swimming, horseback riding, and skiing. Ashley also had a passion for tennis and played the clarinet. She was also very active on social media, constantly sharing memes, jokes, and photos. It was in social networks that Ashley met Jack Settle. Their acquaintance took place in 2015, when she was 12 years old and he was 15. It is known that Jack was born on January 9, 1999, and his mother, Tracy Dalton, was married to a man named Ricky. As for his father, who passed away in 2019, the relationship with him was reportedly strained. As for the rest of Jack's family members, he did not communicate with his brother Jordan, but he did communicate with his sister Nadia. Aside from his mother and sister, Jack didn't have many close people he interacted with, preferring to interact only with people through the internet and video games. According to some of Jack's acquaintances, he often got into trouble at school, although they remembered him as a fun, charming, and boisterous kid. They also talked about his dark side, which showed up when he was angry and spewed aggression at himself and others. It was a friend of Ashley's who interacted with Jack through social media that introduced the two young people. As for many other teenagers, it was natural for Ashley to connect with strangers through various platforms and form virtual friendships, whether they had common interests or were just attracted to each other. Jack and Ashley quickly became virtual friends. At the time, she did not have a smartphone and used the family computer to access social networks. So, friendship with the Englishman was never a secret for her relatives, according to Ashley's mother. During their long-distance friendship, Jack had several relationships with different girls, and Ashley also went through a typical teenage experience. Despite the periods when they stopped communicating, the connection between the young people never completely disappeared, and they continued to communicate over the years. As Ashley and Jack grew older, their relationship changed. They began communicating not only on social media, but also through video calls. As a result, their relationship became more intimate and romantic. Soon, Jack became a familiar face to Ashley's family members. If they passed by when the guys were talking, they usually greeted him as if he was actually in their living room. He also sent the girl gifts of teddy bears and purses on numerous occasions. Ashley's family and friends said she was forever comparing every boy she met to Jack because of the 8-hour time difference between Vernon and Essex, where Jack lived. The young men woke up too early and went to bed too late to be able to talk. In 2018, when Ashley was 15 years old, she began to show interest in seeing Jack in person. However, her family would not allow her to travel alone to another continent. Periodically, like any pair of young people, they quarreled. If those fights resulted in Ashley blocking Jack on her social media accounts, he would create new accounts or send her messages through his sister or acquaintances. This was disturbing and intrusive to the girl's loved ones, but she insisted that he was a compassionate and good-hearted man. In October 2018, Jack got Ashley's name tattooed on his arm. At that time, she was 16 years old and he was 19. The girl's parents thought such a display of affection was excessive, and they warned her to be careful and not even think of doing the same. Soon, during one of the fights, Jack stabbed a knife wound on his tattoo with Ashley's name. After that, the guy started showing jealous and violent behavior. He would get angry if he thought Ashley was dating guys, even though he himself continued to date other girls. But he insisted that Ashley was his favorite and said he only wanted her. One day, Ashley called a girlfriend who was at Jack's house and told her that he wouldn't let her leave.
According to a friend who was present during this conversation, Ashley did not get upset and even reacted as if she was used to such situations. She simply asked Jack to stop acting crazy. Ashley didn't tell her parents about it, but she did tell her friends, who insisted that she stop all contact with him. Despite the guy's many fights and problematic behavior, the couple always made up. Ashley was only 18 years old and had known Jack since her early teens. However, she didn't seem to realize the extent of his manipulation of her at a young age. Ashley began working at fast food restaurants and department stores, which allowed her to save money for entertainment. The first thing she bought was a tablet to be able to use social media more privately. Then the girl started saving money for a trip her senior year of high school. Ashley, who has always been a very spiritual and inquisitive person, had a moment of insight after reading the Book of Mormon and began following the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Ashley graduated from Sidon High School in 2020. She had planned to study law at Thompson Rivers University to become a lawyer, but she didn't immediately enroll there because classes were video conferenced due to the pandemic caused by COVID-19. She wanted to fully experience being part of the university community, so Ashley decided to take a sabbatical for a year before continuing her studies. During the first half of 2021, she continued to work and save money. In April of that year, she was baptized into Mormonism. It was then that Ashley, who had always been a bold and stubborn girl, decided to travel to the UK to meet Jack in person and spend his birthday with him. Her parents and friends weren't thrilled with the idea, but nothing could stop her since she had her own money and was of legal age. On November 12, 2021, Ashley left Canada for the UK on a 6-month tourist visa. The girl left her homeland for the first time and was very happy about the event. Ashley and Jack met in person for the first time on November 13, 2021. On the same day, Ashley changed her profile picture to a picture with him. By then, Jack was already 22 years old and looked much older than Ashley. He was covered in tattoos, even on his face, and the contrast with the young, fun-loving 19-year-old was obvious. During her stay in London, Ashley stayed at Jack's house. A young man had been living alone in an annex in a public housing estate in northwest Chelmsford since 2020. The neighborhood had a dubious reputation, but the couple had looked around the nicer parts of the city in the county of Essex. Jack seemed like the same man Ashley had met online. He was affectionate and caring, showering her with compliments and never turning down romantic selfies. But at the same time, he was not constant and could be cruel. The young people were together every day. Ashley, staying on a tourist visa, could not work, and Jack was unemployed and received benefits. Sometimes he had the support of his mother Tracy, who lived nearby. Ashley tried to constantly post photos and comments from the trip online. Most of the pictures show the couple in an embrace, obviously having a good time and enjoying romantic moments. Ashley was constantly communicating with her family via video link and everything seemed to be going well. They even adopted a kitten they named Winston. However, as time went on, Jack began to withdraw into himself. He no longer wanted to go for walks and sightseeing, preferring to stay home, smoke illegal substances, and play video games while in a foreign country. Ashley could do little on her own, even though she loved being outdoors. Her options were limited to what Jack wanted her to do. Before traveling to England, one of Ashley's church friends set her up with American missionaries who would be in Chelmsford at the same time as her. Ashley wanted to meet and befriend these young men who shared her religion, but Jack wouldn't let her attend church on Sundays. However, the girl kept in touch with them through text messages. To keep Jack from finding out by checking her phone, she deleted the correspondence. Her new church friends discovered almost immediately that Jack was controlling and possibly abusing her. Discussing her problems with them, Ashley admitted that she knew she deserved better, but she just wanted Jack to be happy. The abuse wasn't limited to controlling communication, Ashley with other people. About 6 weeks after the girl arrived, Jack texted his mother to tell her that he had beaten Ashley up because he found out she had blocked 2 UK numbers on her phone. He decided they belonged to other men a few years ago, which triggered a jealousy attack. Although Ashley continued to show photos of her seemingly perfect trip on her public social media accounts, she created a secret profile where she began documenting her bruises. Ashley didn't hide the abuse from her sister Haley, but threatened to cut off communication if she told her mother, as she didn't want her family to hate Jack. In late December 2021, Jack took an excessive amount of an anti-anxiety medication. Ashley called an ambulance, which rushed the guy to the hospital where he was treated for an overdose. The girl was then appointed as Jack's caregiver and took responsibility for the safe administration of his medication. Although Ashley didn't tell her mother or friends about it, Haley accidentally let the secret out. Apparently, her mother was worried and asked her daughter to come back, but Ashley insisted that Jack get better first. In early January 2022, a new incident occurred. Jack smashed a beer glass over the head of Ashley, a sobbing girl. She contacted her sister via video link while the guy made her clean up the broken shards. In the background, the girl could see Jack pacing back and forth, screaming and clenching his teeth. Haley begged her sister to come home, but it was to no avail. On the 9th of that month, Jack celebrated his 23rd birthday with his family as if nothing had happened. And Ashley soon after, Jack's mother and her husband organized a family trip to a small seaside town, figuring a change of scenery would help ease the tension. Everything looked so perfect in the photos that even Ashley's parents, who were unaware of the seriousness of what was going on, breathed a sigh of relief when they saw their daughter's calm and happiness. However, the seeming calm soon disappeared during an argument in late January. Jack hit Ashley again and threw a candle and a TV remote at her as she was on a video call with Haley, who was once again begging her sister to come home. Ashley had agreed at first, but soon changed her mind. She believed that somewhere inside that cruel man was the same charming guy she'd known for so many years. Ashley prayed that time, medicine, or her love would heal him. From his conversations with her mother, Jack seemed to realize the cycle he had driven Ashley into. He accused her of infidelity, beat her up, and then apologized. However, Jack seemed to feel guilty for his actions, but it wasn't enough to prevent the tragedy that eventually happened. On the morning of February 1, 2022, Jack was angry at Ashley again, accusing her of running away and dating other people behind his back. He even demanded that she show him her cell phone and check all of her social media accounts. Shortly before 8 a.m., neighbor Helen Bordenshaw heard Ashley screaming through the shared wall, and a few minutes later, the woman appeared at Jack's door. When the door opened, Helen saw a barefoot and crying Ashley with blood dripping from a cut on her palm. Ashley revealed that Jack had caught her looking at nude pictures of the woman and had become enraged. He verbally abused her, then punched and smashed her phone and threw her kitten at the wall. Despite her fears that Jack was trying to kill Ashley, she asked Helen not to call the police. Helen agreed, but begged Ashley to go with her to a doctor's appointment instead of returning to her partner's apartment. Ashley refused, so Helen decided to go and talk to Jack. He apologized for what had happened, remaining calm, and Haley left for her doctor's appointment. At around 9 a.m., Lucy's neighbor brought Jack a package that had been mistakenly delivered to her address. He didn't want to answer the door at all, but Lucy didn't give it much thought as she knew he was an unfriendly and paranoid person. Around this time, Ashley called her family from Jack's cell phone. By this time, the girl's mother was already aware of what was going on with Jack because Haley couldn't take it anymore and confessed everything. Her parents immediately bought her a return ticket for February 3rd. When Ashley told Jack she was leaving, he agreed to accompany her to take the COVID-19 test required for the trip and also said he would drive her to the airport. Ashley's mother warned her daughter to go to the airport immediately if the boyfriend assaulted her again, and warned Jack that she would call the police if he hurt her daughter again. Ashley's conversation with the family went on for about 3 hours. When they finally disconnected, it was 11 o'clock in the morning in Chelmsford and 3 in the morning in Vernon. A few minutes later, Jack texted his mother to admit that he had once again brutally beaten Ashley, knocking her to the floor and possibly breaking her arm. This occurred between 11:22 a.m. and 12:38 a.m. Ashley sent several messages to family and friends from Jack's cell phone. Since it was nighttime, no one responded.
She also texted her friends at the church in Chelmsford asking for help and pointing out the emergency. Unfortunately, these messages were not received until hours later when there was nothing more that could be done. Between 12:38 and 12:45, Jack attacked Ashley, squeezing her neck until she stopped breathing. He then went to the kitchen, took an 11-centimeter knife and stabbed the girl's chest and stomach about 100 times, ending her life in this brutal way. Jack later changed his profile picture to an image of himself with Ashley, which he accompanied with the caption, "Always mine." He then recorded a video addressed to Hala in which he said he loved Ashley, that he was sorry but couldn't let her go, and that his head wasn't working properly. The video, which was never sent, showed the girl's body next to him. While all this was going on in England, Ashley's family woke up in Vernon and saw the huge number of messages Ashley had sent them. They called Jamie Ashworth, one of their Mormon friends in Chelmsford. Jamie and Tyler Borden, another church acquaintance, went to Jack's apartment. After knocking on the door, they got no answer, called the police and left. At the same time, Ashley's best friend in Vernon noticed that the girl was being active on her social media accounts. In desperation, she texted her. On the other end was Jack, posing as his dead girlfriend. He told his girlfriend that he sent those messages because he needed help to pass the COVID-19 test, but it was no longer necessary. Messages from Ashley's family and friends kept coming in, but Jack ignored them. They were all desperate to hear from her. Finally, Jack called his sister Nadia. When the girl answered, he confessed that he had killed Ashley, even showing his sister the body. This happened around 4:13 p.m. When the police entered the apartment in response to Jamie's call, even though it only took them 10 minutes to arrive on the scene, it was too late. Police arrested Jack on the spot. He was covered in blood. The guy told the officers that he had a psychotic episode and confessed to the crime. He was then sent to Chelmsford Prison. The trial was set for September 7, 2022 at Chelmsford Crown Court. A toxicology examination showed that Jack had only traces of light illicit substances and a small amount of anti-anxiety medication. According to the psychiatric examination, the defendant was fit to give evidence and stand trial. The evidence against Jack was overwhelming and included a videotape of him admitting to committing the crime. The guy immediately pleaded guilty, and the judge informed him that given his confession, there could only be one sentence: life imprisonment. On the day of the hearing, held at Chelmsford Crown Court under Judge Edward Murray, Prosecutor Simon Spence read out details of the criminal record Jack had acquired as a teenager. It was there that Ashley's parents first learned who their daughter's boyfriend really was. Jack has been in trouble with the law since 2014. He has been arrested multiple times for stalking a girl, for kidnapping, for unlawful confinement in a home, and for violent assault. He has also been granted a restraining order against his mother and his girlfriend several times. Ashley's parents were shocked to learn of the criminal record of the man who took their daughter's life. During the hearing, the prosecution and defense exchanged views on the letter Jack sent to Ashley's family from prison, in which he expressed remorse for what he had done. After the hearing, Judge Murray allowed the letter to be released to the media, citing the principle of open justice. In the letter, addressed to Ashley's entire family but especially her mother and sister Haley, Jack acknowledged that nothing could bring Ashley back to them or take away the pain they were experiencing. He regretted his act and acknowledged that his mental state played a large role in the tragedy. Jack also claimed that he had spoken openly about his mental health with Ashley. At the end of the trial, Jack Sapple was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 23 years. Based on witness reports, an unidentified individual opened fire inside the Wilmington courthouse in Delaware on February 11, 2013, at approximately 8 a.m., resulting in the deaths of 2 women before the shooter took his own life. This act of violence was premeditated and not a spontaneous incident. Law enforcement personnel, including police officers and FBI agents, responded to the scene. While operatives conducted a thorough search of the courthouse, the investigation remained in its early stages. Authorities located the gunman's vehicle, a white SUV, parked on the opposite side of the street. Within the car, police discovered a red notebook containing a list of intended victims. The primary target was Christine Belfort, followed by her lawyer Timothy Hitchings, one of the women who was killed. The attorney survived the incident, having been delayed by a few minutes and not yet meeting with his client. Video footage from security cameras reveals two individuals exiting the vehicle. One of them nonchalantly traversed the street and entered the courthouse, followed shortly by the second person, after which the aforementioned events unfolded. At 12:10 p.m., the police issued a press release indicating that the assailant was linked to one of the victims, his former spouse, Christine Belfort. However, the truth proved to be far more disturbing. Detective Jeffrey Schreiner, upon hearing the radio report of the courthouse shooting, swiftly responded to the scene. Inside, he discovered two women lying adjacent to each other on the floor and a man lying separately just beyond the revolving door. As the police officer entered the lobby and examined the victims more closely, he recognized one of them. Detective Schreiner was the sole individual at the scene with prior knowledge of the Christine Belfort and David Matusiewicz case. He instinctively presumed he knew the shooter's identity, but the detective's assumption proved incorrect. The situation was far more complex than it appeared. 6 years prior to the shooting, on September 9, 2007, around 9 p.m., Detective Jeffrey Schreiner from the Missing Persons Unit received a distressed call from a woman. She adamantly claimed that her 3 daughters had been abducted, identifying herself as Christine Belfort. According to her account, the perpetrator was her ex-husband, David Matusiewicz. Christine had permitted her husband to take their children on a 2-week vacation to Disneyland in Orlando, Florida. On August 26, 2007, the woman bade farewell to her 3 young blonde daughters with a kiss. Despite no apparent cause for concern, she spent the following 2 weeks feeling uneasy. The woman mentioned that whenever her daughters were with their father, contacting them was consistently challenging. She and her ex-husband had agreed that the children would return home by September, but they never did. The ex-husband did not respond to phone calls. Initially, Schreiner did not consider the incident a kidnapping, viewing it as another case of parents battling for custody. Such situations were common. A father or mother would take the children for the weekend and be reluctant to return them promptly, desiring to spend more time with them. The detective simply intended to reach out to David and clarify the situation from his perspective, but he was unable to contact Matusiewicz. The officer was aware that family abductions typically involved children under the age of 6, who were too young to comprehend that a crime was occurring. However, those who kidnapped their own children were usually located within a matter of hours or days. Christine Belfort's case proved to be different. The policeman's suspicions grew when Christine visited the station and presented him with custody documents. The documents revealed that David had made various allegations against his ex-wife, asserting that Christine was an unfit mother for his daughters and that he should be granted full custody. Matusiewicz's accusations began with suspicions that the woman had bipolar disorder and attempts to have her committed to a psychiatric hospital. As the investigation commenced, Schreiner first examined the credit card records, which indicated that David's last transaction occurred on August 26th, the day the family departed for Florida. A few weeks before the disappearance, Matusiewicz's mother, Lenore, had acquired a Winnebago motorhome. The elderly woman had also vanished. The detective urgently submitted a report to initiate the search, but at that point, no one was aware of David's intentions for his ex-wife. Christine met David Matusiewicz following the dissolution of her first marriage. Initially, he appeared to be a very agreeable individual to her. The man was a prosperous optometrist who owned his own practice. They encountered each other when Christine was employed by him as an administrator. In 2001, Christine and David wed and relocated to a pleasant residence in Middletown, Delaware. The woman already had a daughter, Katie, from her previous marriage, and they subsequently had 3 more daughters, 3 little blondes, Laura, Lee, and Karen. The marriage began to deteriorate as soon as David permitted his parents, Thomas and Lenore, to reside with them. Thomas, a former police officer from New Jersey, was described as a highly argumentative individual. Lenore was not far behind her husband in terms of irritability. With no other occupation, David's mother started to educate her daughter-in-law and instruct her on how to manage the household. The woman was annoyed by absolutely everything: how her granddaughters were educated, how her son was cared for, what was prepared for dinner, or how family finances were managed. Lenore, with her advice, was prepared to intervene in any aspect of the young family's life. It reached a point where Christine began to feel uncomfortable in her own home. After 5 years of marriage, in January 2006, she filed for divorce. The woman hoped that they would be able to maintain a cordial relationship with her ex-husband and the girl's father, sharing custody of them. However, David had no intention of allowing this. More than 2,000 miles to the south in Hidalgo County, Texas, David Matusiewicz' car was speeding toward the Mexican border. Christine's 3 daughters, Laura, Lee, and Karen, were playing in the back of the car. Their father, David, and their grandmother, Lenore, were seated in the front seats of the van. Soon, U.S. jurisdiction ended, and the travelers reached the customs post. An agent took their passports and asked how many people were inside the motorhome. David answered without showing the slightest sign of concern. Lenore also smiled kindly at the officer, not arousing any suspicion. The agent could clearly hear the girls talking and laughing somewhere inside. He compared the photographs in the passports with the faces of the driver and passenger, then returned the documents to David and opened the gate. The Matusiewicz mother and son, along with his 3 daughters, successfully crossed the international border. At that time, the authorities were unaware that the man had started planning his crime in the previous year. In December 2006, he arranged to obtain fake IDs for himself, his mother, and all 3 girls. David's motorhome crossed the Mexican border on August 28th and left no trace behind. Now, with a 2-week head start, they could be anywhere. Local authorities and federal agencies initially searched for the girls in New Jersey, where David grew up. Then they followed dozens of leads in Virginia, and only one tip made them suspect that the girls could be outside the country. Investigators searched David's house and found bank statements from New Zealand and Canada. Detective Schreiner also discovered that David had sold his business in Delaware for $650,000. Even worse, he had taken out a $249,000 loan in Christine's name by forging her signature. While Christine was trying to determine where her ex-husband could have gone with their 3 children, she tried to remain strong, not revealing that she had nearly stopped sleeping at night. She spent all her free hours fruitlessly at the computer, hoping to find even the slightest thread leading to her girls. November 2007 marked 2 months since Christine's daughters had vanished. Thomas Matusiewicz and his daughter, Amy Gonzalez, claimed to have no knowledge of David and Lenore's whereabouts. However, curiously, both Thomas and Amy abruptly relocated to Texas, within 20 miles of the Mexican border. This behavior did not go unnoticed, and Detective Schreiner suggested that the entire Matusiewicz family was implicated in the abduction. At that point, the search for the missing had reached an international scale, with Interpol also involved. News agencies reported on the kidnapping of 3 girls by a Delaware optometrist. Soon, the police discovered that David was hiding in Cerro Azul, just an hour's drive from Panama City. They mobilized a team, but David vanished before operatives could reach the house where he was hiding. Shortly thereafter, the FBI received information about David's passport, which he had used to travel to Costa Rica, and then there was complete silence. Over the next 16 months, the case stalled, and the investigation essentially ceased. By March 2009, Christine had nearly lost hope. She had not heard from the girls for 18 months. Karen, the youngest, was only 2 years old when her mother last saw her. She was just a baby, and now she would soon turn 4. Katie, Christine's eldest daughter from a previous relationship, shared in an interview what her mother had to endure. Every time she received the slightest hint, Christine would board a plane and fly to where David and her girls were supposedly located. But she consistently returned with the same words: "They're not there." With each trip,
Her confidence rapidly diminished. Christine's condition was deteriorating, but she could not accept the idea that she had lost her little blonde angels and would never see them again, never witness them growing up, falling in love, or getting married. The woman desperately pushed such thoughts away, but time relentlessly brought them back. Even Detective Schreiner began to question the likelihood of a successful outcome to the case. But then, the FBI got a lead. They were monitoring the cell phone of Amy Gonzalez, David's sister, and intercepted a call to South America, to a small town called Catalina, Nicaragua. The police immediately issued a bulletin with photos of the missing persons and the Winnebago van with Delaware plates. This is not a very common vehicle in that country, so there was a high probability that it would be noticed. On March 13, 2009, a Nicaraguan police officer pulled over a car for a routine document check. The driver of the car was revealed to be David Matuszewicz, accompanied by his eldest daughter, Laura. The man was driving around town selling his daughter's belongings. After spending approximately $1 million planning the abduction, he had less than $100 in cash on him. When David handed his driver's license to the officer disregarded it and instead instructed the driver to exit the vehicle. David was promptly arrested, and Laura was taken to the police station. Lenore, David's mother, and the two younger girls were in a filthy trailer filled with items from their Delaware home, a few miles outside of town. That night, Christine was the first to fly to Nicaragua. It was an emotional reunion between the mother and children who had not seen each other for more than a year and a half. At first glance, the girls appeared healthy, although they did not look their best. The eldest, Laura, who had already turned 7, recounted to her mother how she once slept on a beach in Costa Rica. Her daughter, Lee, who had psychological problems, was not receiving any treatment. Christine was overjoyed, but simultaneously, she was somewhat shocked by what she heard. The woman was astonished to learn what David had been telling the girls about her. Laura, the eldest daughter, said that they believed their mother was dead. Their father had told the little ones that Christine had taken her own life. The girls believed that their mother truly did not love them, since she decided to go to heaven without even saying goodbye. This was genuinely cruel and heartless towards his own children. To avoid trial, David Matuszewicz pleaded guilty to kidnapping his own children and bank fraud. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, followed by a 5-year probationary period. Lenore Matuszewicz also pleaded guilty to endangering the lives of the children. She received 18 months behind bars. According to her lawyer, the elderly woman deeply regretted her choice and stated that it was wrong to separate the children from their mother, adding that keeping the girls away from their grandmother was also a harsh punishment. Christine knew she needed to hire a lawyer to strip David of any custody rights before he was released. Christine's attorney, Timothy Hitchens, filed a petition to terminate parental rights for Laura, Karen, and Lee, as well as a restraining order against all members of the Matuszewicz family. This was the last straw for Christine's ex-husband. Although David and his mother Lenore were in custody, and the children were safe with their mother, the nightmare that had lasted for the past year and a half was just a preparation for what the Matuszewicz had in store for Christine. They were not going to forgive the woman for such presumption. On December 22nd, David wrote a letter from prison to his sister, warning that he was done playing Mr. Nice Guy. The man asked her to start filing anonymous complaints with the Family Affairs Department and create a website dedicated to Christine Belford. At that moment, no one yet realized what kind of monster they were actually dealing with. In March 2009, 4 years before the courthouse shooting, the news about the return of Christine's 3 daughters appeared on the front page of the News Journal, which published a photo of Christine with Laura and Karen. When the girls returned home, it was very noticeable how much weight they had lost. Their teeth required urgent treatment, and their eyes were red due to severe conjunctivitis. The nomadic lifestyle that their father and grandmother had arranged for them was clearly not suitable for their young bodies. For a while, the girls were simply not themselves, but soon their lives returned to normal. Now that David and Lenore were behind bars, Christine could finally breathe a sigh of relief. At that time, a woman named Cindy Bender added Christine as a friend on social media. She told her how she had followed the story of the girl's abduction with excitement and was overjoyed that it had ended well. Cindy wanted to know that Laura, Karen, and Lee were now okay, and so began their correspondence friendship. The woman told Christine a story about how she had dated David Matusiewicz in the past and understood better than anyone else what Christine had to go through. This made Christine believe in the pure intentions of her interlocutor. The need to share her experiences with someone played a cruel joke on the girl's mother. The woman told Cindy information about the girls' lives, their grades in school, and their successes in sports. She sent her countless personal photos of the whole family and told her about funny incidents in their daily lives. Christine forgot that it's best to keep personal matters to oneself and not trust the first person you meet. In fact, Cindy Bender had long been in love with David, and it was at his request that she befriended Christine online. Christine had a private profile, but by adding her as a friend, Cindy could see everything she posted and know from correspondence almost every detail of what was happening behind closed doors with Christine and the girls. Naturally, she passed all the information she received to her beloved's relatives. In December 2009, when David and his mother Lenore were already behind bars, a mysterious web page appeared on the internet titled "A Grandmother's Impossible Choice and a Father's Willingness to Risk Everything to Save His Little Girls." The essence of this article was that in 29 points, fictitious events from the lives of Christine and the girls were described, where the woman was accused of things such as intimate harassment of her eldest daughter, physical punishment, and assault. It was said that the mother threatened to sell her children for $50,000 to a recently released prisoner, just so as not to share custody with David. Christine was accused of throwing food on the carpet so that her daughter and dog would fight for it. Allegedly, Christine kept the diary that Lenore accidentally discovered when she was cleaning the house. The elderly woman read it, learned about her own daughter-in-law's devious plans, and decided to save her granddaughters from their monster mother. And the girl's father sacrificed everything to take his children away from this woman. But who could create a web page if Lenore herself was in prison and did not have the opportunity to go online? It turned out to be very simple. David's sister, Amy Gonzalez, worked on creating the site. In a letter sent from prison by her brother, there were clear instructions regarding actions. David came up with various plots to spread this story. Amy printed out pages of the website and sent them to everyone who was in any way connected with Christine, her friends, neighbors, colleagues, and parents of students. At that time, Christine was teaching at a church Sunday school. All this was done anonymously, but the goal was to completely destroy the poor woman's reputation, put her in the most unfavorable light, and make it clear that the Matusiewiczes were still in control of the situation. Close friends were shocked when they opened the envelopes and read the contents of the anonymous messages. They guessed whose handiwork it was, but they could not understand why the Matusiewiczes would spread false, compromising information about Christine after what they had done themselves. Christine had to say goodbye to her job. She left her position as an elementary school teacher because she realized that she could not tell first graders about a righteous life when they were spreading dirty rumors about her. No matter how much Christine tried to protect her daughters from the false accusations against her, she realized that sooner or later it could affect them as well. The eldest girl, 16-year-old Katie, tried in every way to support her mother and protect her younger sisters from the wave of hate on the internet. But even she felt that Christine's strength was running out and the campaign against her was beginning to bear its bitter fruits. It already seemed to the woman that it would never stop, that David and his family would never stop and would not let them live in peace. If previously religion had helped her cope with difficulties, now she was practically deprived of even that. Christine fell into an even deeper depression. Christine's condition was worsened by the fact that on September 16, 2010, Lenore Matusiewicz was released from prison. Even at a distance, Christine feared her mother-in-law and what she might dare to do for the sake of revenge for her son. An elderly woman was unlikely to be deterred by a restraining court order, given what she had dared to do in an attempt to abduct her own granddaughters. In March 2011, a video titled "Don't Hurt Me, Mommy" appeared on YouTube, where Christine Belford is trying to jokingly drag her frolicking girls home. The author of the video wanted network users to believe that the mother was mistreating her little ones. The number of indignations in the comments was off the scale, and has clearly indicated that someone truly saw Christine as a woman who bullied her own children, which was precisely what the Matusiewiczes wanted. They aimed to break Christine so that she would give up the girls herself, not being able to withstand the cyber attack, and apparently they were close to achieving their goal. Christine always felt like she was being followed. She literally turned into a paranoid. By that time, Christine had a man named Gerald Purcell. He immediately guessed who was leaking information about Christine to her ex-husband and tried to persuade the woman to stop corresponding with Cindy Bender. But for some reason, Christine believed that her online friend would not betray her and continued to share intimate details. When Thomas and Lenore Matusiewicz unexpectedly descended on their house in December 2011, having traveled more than 2,000 miles from another state, it was Gerald Purcell who was able to confront the former relatives. Having arrived unexpectedly, the grandmother and grandfather scared the children to such an extent by starting to break into all the windows and doors that they hid in the closet in the bedroom. They did not come out until Gerald appeared. Although everything seemed to end well, Christine no longer wanted to stay in this place. Despite the fact that video cameras were installed outside the building, 2 German shepherds lived with them in the house, and there was a bat next to the bed in the bedroom and knives on the bedside table. Christine did not feel safe. She was consumed by the idea of moving away so that she would never meet either David or his parents again. Meanwhile, members of the Matusiewicz family, awaiting David's release from prison, were already preparing another attack. They had a plan of Christine's house, photographs of every entrance, every window, and every installed camera. They were only waiting for the release of the main character and the ideological mastermind, David. The Matusiewicz family was obsessed with the idea of getting the children by any means. Christine did not know this, but she sensed the threat emanating from them. She understood that they would not back down from her so easily and would not allow the girls to stay with her. After the kidnapping, the woman was preparing for the worst. She and her eldest daughter, Katie, even developed a sequence of actions in case of an emergency. Christine understood that David would do everything to make her suffer, even if his own children suffered in the process. Now he had nothing to lose. In the last days before the end of his prison sentence, the mother literally called her daughters every half hour to know where they were. After being released from federal prison in April 2012, David went to Ed Couch to his family. Christine was able to file for child support for her 3 children after her ex-husband served his sentence. He refused to pay, so the trial was scheduled for February 2013. On the morning of February 11th, Christine got the girls ready for classes, trying to keep a happy face. If the younger ones did not yet notice the hidden emotions, Katie clearly saw how much effort it cost her mother. Christine arranged to go to the hearing with her friend Laura Mulford. Gerald, her boyfriend, offered to take time off work and go with them, but Christine refused. The women arrived at the Newcastle County Courthouse in Wilmington around 8 a.m. They entered the lobby through the revolving doors. There were few visitors inside, only a few people, including security guards. Suddenly, shots rang out, followed by the sound of breaking glass and the screams of eyewitnesses. The target of the attack was Christine Belford. She was shot dead on the spot. Her friend Laura Mulford tried to run out into the street, but she was also hit by a bullet. Surveillance camera footage shows a man coming out from behind a column, raising his hand and firing a .45 caliber pistol. Christine entered the courthouse first, followed by her friend Laura. Christine was shot several times in the chest. The guards, who had come to their senses, tried to confront the shooter, but both were wounded. Then the man, not reaching the exit, raised his gun and shot himself in the head. He died on the spot. Both women, Christine Belford and Laura Mulford, were urgently taken to the hospital, but it was too late. Both were pronounced dead. This was the culmination of years of threats, harassment, and cyberstalking directed at Christine by her ex-husband David, along with other members of his family. David himself was found in the Newcastle courthouse and taken into custody. The shooter turned out to be not him, but his father Thomas Matusiewicz, who, after dealing with the women, turned the gun on himself. Detective Schreiner, who was called to the scene as soon as he saw Christine on the floor, first thought that her ex-husband had shot her. Only when he saw the elderly man next to the revolving door did he realize that he was mistaken. Police officers were urgently sent to schools to pick up the children before Lenore or Amy could get to them. The safety of the children became the top priority in this case, because the shooting of Christine in the courthouse was not the end of the Matusiewicz's plan. All the girls were found in class and immediately taken to a safe place. Meanwhile, detectives questioned David and found out the address where Lenore and Amy were waiting for the men. The women claimed that they were not aware of what had happened. They denied any involvement in the shooting. Lenore assured the police that her husband acted independently. When Christine's boyfriend Gerald was told of her death, the man was devastated by the tragic news. Just last night, they were dreaming of how they would sort things out and get away from all these problems, and today, the life of his beloved had suddenly ended. He could not protect her, did not insist on personally accompanying her to court, and now the man felt that a part of his soul had died with Christine. The eldest daughter, Katie, learned about the shooting in the courthouse from social media messages. The girl already guessed that her mother could have been hurt, hoping until the last that it was some kind of mistake. Unfortunately, all her worst fears were justified. But for the Matusiewicz family, Christine's death served as a signal for action. A few days after the incident, Amy Gonzalez filed a petition for custody of the girls, and Christine's mother-in-law gave an interview where she repeated the fictional story from the website. Lenore thought that now her hands were untied and no one would be able to justify Christine. The woman did not take into account that her granddaughters were growing up and were able to tell the truth themselves. A search was conducted at the Matusiewicz house in Edcouch, Texas. Inside, police found weapons, ammunition, and a handwritten note by Thomas. It was clear that the man knew he would never return home. The case was investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Delaware State Police. Detectives concluded that the only way to ensure the future safety of Christine's 3 children was to hold the entire Matusiewicz family accountable. David Gonzalez and Lenore were arrested. David was already behind bars by then. On June 11, 2015, the trial began in the first case in history of cyberstalking resulting in death. Hundreds of pieces of evidence were presented against the Matusiewicz family. Weapons with ammunition, photographs of Christine's house with surveillance cameras circled, and hundreds of emails discussing ways to harass Christine. Lenore tried to defend the family and quote a printout of the fake story about her daughter-in-law. But Christine's daughter Laura, who was 13 years old at the time, was called as a witness. She was able to sensibly assess what had happened to her mother. Laura was able to restore Christine's honor and reputation by saying that her mother had never behaved cruelly towards her or her sisters. The schoolgirl insisted that she had never been subjected to any violence by her mother. Everything her grandmother said was a blatant lie. David Matusiewicz, his mother Lenore, and his sister Amy Gonzalez were found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. They will never get out of prison again. After Christine's tragic death, her 3 girls were placed in a foster family. The eldest, Katie, who already has a child of her own, hopes to one day be reunited with her sisters. Christine Belford left behind a legacy that will never be destroyed. 4 beautiful daughters who cherish the memory of their untimely departed mother.